Hiya folks, Nerd Ventures back again, new video, weekend video this time. Last week didn't have one, and this one was slightly delayed because I hadn't picked it up until today. And this is the DC Universe Rebirth Previews book special flip through from me and my thoughts on DC Rebirth in general. If you would like to hear a long form version of this conversation, I would highly encourage you to check out the Get a Cat, Get a Horse podcast that I do with Amani, a fellow YouTuber who goes by NerdHal. I will, link that obviously in the show notes, and you can find it on SoundCloud or iTunes by searching for Get a Cat, Get a Horse. But we just did a full hour-long discussion on DC Rebirth, what we thought was good, what we thought was bad. So I was going to do a little face cam for this video and have a little discussion, but I talked about it so extensively already in the podcast. So if you are really interested in a long-form conversation, that would be the best place to check it out. For now, I'm just going to give you my abbreviated thoughts on it, and then we will flip through this lovely free previews book, which any of you can go pick up either by itself or as part of the monthly previews from Diamond. But this one came out a little bit later. I think it was just released last Wednesday, which was like the 13th, I think, of April. So this one's a little bit later than the normal book because it's a big, huge collection of stuff that's shipping out from DC. So, without further ado, what do I think about Rebirth? Well, honestly, and this is a little bit, I don't know if embarrassing is the right word, but I didn't even really understand Rebirth until I got this physical book in my hand. And I say that having read a lot about it before, and even having done a podcast on it, I didn't actually quite get what the titles themselves were until I looked through this. And it is kind of confusing. So I guess I'll just give my general thoughts on it. Generally, I think it's nothing that unusual or special. I mean, since like 1998 or so, let's say, since like 2000, around 2000, there's been reboots or relaunches quite frequently from both DC and Marvel. Whether it's been the New 52 or Marvel Now or All New, All Different Marvel, or Marvel Knights kind of had like its own thing. I don't know if that was technically a relaunch, but the point being that it's been recycled, as kind of more people have come into the comic book readership. There's been a push away from doing these, number 600, 700, 800, whatever books, and towards relaunching with either new number ones or limited series for different characters or whatever. So it's not unheard of, and it's not that unusual. DC Universe Rebirth is a little different in the sense that it's changing up the literal publishing and shipping of these books, which I'll talk about in a moment. But as a concept, it's not that different. It does feel weird coming on the heels of the New 52. If you are somebody who follows DC at all, and I have not read that much New 52, but I, got into comics while it was sort of developing. New 52 is basically a relaunch after the Flashpoint miniseries, which reset all the continuity and kind of, famously, like, when I say reset, I mean everything before it didn't matter. There's been times where relaunches have happened and you go back to a number one, but in actuality you're referencing things previously. The intent, as far as I am aware, with New 52 was actually not just to start a new number one, but to reset the universe from ground zero so that new readers could get on and understand the entirety of the universe. Now, Rebirth itself seems antithetical to that, because if we look at the beginning of this, it talks about DC Universe Rebirth number one. The original universe evolves by mixing traditional values with modern aesthetics. That seems to be, that's like the tagline, let's say, for Rebirth. Traditional values, modern aesthetics. So what DC seemed to have been saying or feeling from fans was that the versions of these characters that they were kind of putting out there for the New 52 were versions that people weren't really resonating with as much. It wasn't the classic Superman, it wasn't the classic Wonder Woman, it wasn't these, classic characters like you see on this page over here. It was kind of new versions of them, and I think DC did gain readership from putting out these new versions, but I think they simultaneously shucked off a lot of their classic readership who had read, hundreds of issues of all these characters, and then when you restart them with all new designs and sort of younger versions of the characters and stuff, I think it turned a lot of people off and turned them away from what they felt, their Superman was, or their Aquaman, or their Wonder Woman. It was too far away from what they wanted. So Rebirth seems to be an attempt to get back to that, to kind of embrace the more quote unquote traditional values, whatever the heck that means. I don't really know what that means. Traditional values of the heroes that you had known and loved and grew up with, and with a modern aesthetic. Now, the modern aesthetic part is a turnoff to me. As many of you know who follow this channel, I'm not the biggest fan of modern comic book art, especially sort of the house style of DC. Like this sort of looking thing, I don't care for it that much. And modern coloring especially turns me off with all the different gradations, and it just looks really digital and gross. I don't care for it that much, but I'm willing to give all this stuff a shot and see what it looks like. So let's truck through this and see what exactly is in this. I hope what I'm saying is making sense, and we'll see what we're getting up to. Basically, it starts with a little letter from Jeff Johns, the Chief Creative Officer at DC, who is going to be helming the DC Universe Rebirth #1. So much like Flashpoint, Rebirth #1 is going to be a single oversized one-shot issue that is going to serve as the catalyst for the DC Rebirth line. And then from there, basically, so here it says, May, there's going to be Rebirth #1. June, there's going to be a Superman, Green Arrow, Aquaman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Titans Rebirths. July, there's going to be Red Hood, Hal Jordan, Nightwing, Batgirl, August, Cyborg, Suicide Squad, Supergirl, Batman Beyond. So basically, as you can see, starting with the most popular characters mostly, and June's going to be Batman. So starting with these big characters, there's going to be one-shots for each of these things. So there's going to be like a one-shot for Batman and one-shot for Superman. Obviously, you can tell that. And then from there, a new #1 is going to be put out, and the series is going to start fresh. So it's basically like each comic line that you might follow is going to have a sort of a mini event where the continuity is reset, or at least the is going back to sort of, as it says, it begins, the mystery that will drop draws to the floor. I don't really know exactly what Rebirth is going to be, but yeah. So it's going to basically make the series reset themselves, make it so new readers can jump on. So let's skip ahead. There's a lot of like little mini interviews with here. Jim Lee on Suicide Squad. There's a little bit about Batman. There's a little bit about All-Star Batman. But we're gonna touch on all of these in a moment when we get to the actual Solicits themselves. So if you're interested in picking up this this magazine, if you're really into DC, I would recommend it. This reads like, it's all just basically advertisements. It's just kind of these weird advertisements with like little a trajectory went up and not so much, or like different threat levels and all this stuff. It's kind of goofy. I don't really care for it. But once we get to the actual Rebirth itself, the actual Solicit. So, like I said, DC Rebirth #1. This is going to be a one-shot, 80 pages at the end of May, and it's going to serve as the catalyst for resetting the rest of the universe. Then we're going to get a Superman Rebirth. The creative team on this is going to be Peter Tomasi, who I do recognize, but I have not read his stuff, and then Doug Mankey and James Mendoza. Now, why I want to talk about this stuff is a lot of these books are shipping twice monthly. That's going to be sort of the MO for DC moving forward with a lot of their big books, is shipping twice monthly. And what that means is almost all of these comics are going to have one writer and then two artists. And either, I don't know if that means that one artist is going to do all the art on one issue and then the other artist is going to do all the art on another issue, or if it means that the artists are going to split it down the middle. But as you can see, Superman, Action Comics, Batman, Detective Comics, Aquaman, Flash, Green Arrow, Green Lanterns, Wonder Woman. I think that's it. So all of these books are going to be shipping twice monthly. Now, I'm concerned about that as as somebody who likes comics a lot, that doesn't really ring that, I don't know if true is not the right word, but it doesn't really garner a lot of positive feelings in my mind because of this reason. I don't care about delays. Now, I understand manufacturers. I understand, well, manufacturers do care about delays, but comic book stores especially care about delays. And I get that. That's a big deal for comic book stores because people come in expecting the next issue. They don't get it. They fall off the series. They lose subscription numbers. That's big business that comic book stores are losing. And this is big business that comic book stores could be gaining by, putting the amount of issues going up that high. So I get it from that perspective. But as somebody who cares about the industry and sort of the fandom of it, not the fandom, that's not the right word. Somebody who cares about the industry, the construction of these stories and these books, and having, a stable and long-lasting sort of strong infrastructure, I don't believe that double shipping is the right way to go. Now, I would love nothing more than to eat my words and to have every single one of these double shipped books be amazing. I want that to happen so badly. I would love that. There's nothing that I would love more than a year from now, looking at a new catalog where we're getting all these amazing collections of all these double shipped books, and everybody loves the Superman series and everybody loves the Batman series and all that stuff. I want that so badly. But I don't believe this kind of creative style is indicative or fosters that. I don't think that this environment of double shipping with multiple artists is going to get you that. My example would be Secret Wars from this last year, or even Civil War from a number of years ago. So Hickman's Secret Wars with Asad Ribic was delayed. The number of issues was expanded. And, ultimately, I don't believe people are going to remember that at all. I think comic book retailers will remember that because they got, either screwed or they were disappointed by not being able to put things on the shelves when they wanted. But I don't think if we fast forward 5 or 10 years from now, any fan who's picking up the Secret Wars hardcover or trade paperback or collecting the issues or however you want to read it, I don't think they're going to care at all. And I don't think delays matter. I think a delay, to quote, this is an often quoted thing from Shigeru Miyamoto, the developer of Mario, in the video game terms, is that a delayed game is delayed for a few months. A bad game is bad forever, And I think that rings true for comics, too. A delayed comic is delayed for a period of time. A bad comic is bad forever. And a good comic is good forever. So, in my opinion, this strategy of double shipping everything at $2.99, they're not going to be doing any more like $4 or $5 sort of like Premier Comics. So Action Comics is going to have the crew of Dan Jurgens with Patrick Zurcher. Batman, Tom King writing with David Finch and Matt Banning on art. All of these different teams. I don't believe that making that sort of cut in time to produce content that quickly is ultimately going to make any of these series remembered for a high quality bar. And like I said moments ago, I would love to be wrong about that. I hope that all of these series are amazing. But in my opinion, this is not fostering that type of creativity. I would rather have people working on these things from a longer term goal. Like, I don't want DC to turn around and say, as with every business, there's a long term and a short term. And I feel like DC is too focused on the short term because they're losing market share to Marvel. I feel as though they are too focused on turning this around, double shipping $3 books, and just getting as many out the door as possible. And I think that loses focus on the long term of looking 5 years down the line and saying, what were these stories that are going to be remembered forever, like the Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo Batman, or the Azzarello and Chang Wonder Woman, or maybe the Jeff Lemire Green Arrow, Scott Snyder's Swamp Thing, Jeff Lemire's Animal Man, like these books from the New 52 that I think are going to be remembered positively for the rest of their existence. I'm wondering if that is going to happen with these. So that's my spiel on Rebirth. Basically that's my feelings on it, is that I'm just concerned that DC is looking too much in the short term at regaining a market share by flooding the market with all of these different titles. And I have to say that I personally don't know many of these creators at all. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not well known. Obviously, there's tons of creators out there that I don't know. Greg Rucka I do know, and I am looking forward to his Wonder Woman. I think that will be really good. But most of the artists and the writers, I would say 75 to 80% of the artists and the writers on these Rebirth titles, I am unfamiliar with. Now, I don't know if that means that I have just not been paying attention that much, or, what I am inclined to think it means more is that the big names are sort of done with working on this schedule for DC, and that they're moving on to do work at Image or launch sort of create our own projects at other places, and that the people that DC is getting to fill in these really quick turnarounds and everything are more people that they can kind of dictate the art style to, and make them have more of this consistent DC house style, like I was saying. You're not going to see anybody with styles like Mike Mignola or Bill Sienkiewicz or something that's very idiosyncratic. I don't think you're going to see them doing any of these mainstream books, because that's not what DC's looking for. They're looking for more like a continuity and a consistency between all the lines that somebody can pick up and read. So, for me, on the outset, Rebirth seems like a misstep. That is just my personal opinion. I can't say this for sure until the end of May and June when we start getting these books and people start reading them. But the structure of it, just in its double shipping and in its multi-artist on the books and stuff, that to me seems like a misstep. It doesn't seem like what I want to be reading from a comic book company. So maybe I will be proven wrong. But then the other thing that becomes confusing to me beyond that is that there are also more series that are not restarting, and I'm a little bit confused by that. I don't know if these books, like Constantine Cyborg and stuff, they're going to restart eventually, but I guess this is still being solicited. There's no new Dr. Fate in Rebirth as far as I know. There's not Red Hood, Arsenal, Legend of Tomorrow, Deathstroke, Earth 2, all of these books, Swamp Thing number 6, they have not been announced, as far as I know. If I'm understanding this correctly, Swamp Thing, for example, has not been announced as a Rebirth title. Now, I don't know if that means that Swamp Thing is going away and they're consolidating. Oh, I guess it says the stunning conclusion to Len Wein's miniseries. So I'm guessing that these books are basically going away, and the DC is consolidating their line down into just a smaller, number of books that they're publishing altogether. So instead of sort of hitting broad and wide, they're kind of going very small and focused. So I'm not entirely certain, all of these different books, Harley Quinn, Grayson, Injustice, DC Bombshells, Robin, Son of Batman. I honestly just don't know if this means that this is the end of these. I mean, a lot of these say that it's a series conclusion. So I'm guessing that means that this is going to be the end, and that it's going to be reset into a smaller continuity. But either way, I feel like it makes it, to me, it makes it feel less permanent, I guess. If you are letting some series go on, and you're letting some series be part of the New 52 continuity while also letting some series be Rebirths series or whatever it is, start with new number ones, it doesn't have a sort of consistency to give me any type of aesthetic or plan. I have no confidence that it's been planned out that much. The tagline of traditional values and modern aesthetics, that is literally meaningless. I don't know what that means. Traditional values means nothing. It's just a buzzword to me. And so I have no idea what that actually means. Like I said, my interpretation of it is to go back to before the New 52, sort of messed with a lot of the ways these characters had worked in people's minds. But that doesn't really mean anything. Does that mean that we're going to be getting the Batman from the 1940s, or does it going to mean we're getting the Batman from the 1960s, or the 70s, or 80s, or is this going to be a new Batman? And if so, then what is traditional about this new Batman's values? I don't really get what that means. So I can't really speculate on that or speak to it until I read it more. But I just feel like everything about the relaunch and all of this, the double shipping, the multi-people creative teams, and the inconsistencies with what is being relaunched and what is not, just makes me feel confused and makes me feel a lack of direction with the way that DC is putting this stuff out there. I'm not saying here to say objectively it's going to be bad or objectively it's going to be good. I'm just saying from my personal perspective as somebody who follows this stuff, relatively with relative frequency and sort of understanding generally, I don't have a lot of confidence with the way the DC is presenting this. So enough of that Rebirth stuff. Let's move on and see if there's any interesting collected edition things. And right off the bat, I will say yes. To me personally, I find this to be very interesting. It was a controversial thing when this was announced on the message boards or Facebook pages. This is the Absolute Batman Year 1 hardcover. Now, the reason that it was controversial was that it's actually $125 for an Absolute of content that is probably 4 issues worth of content. So a very, very small amount of content. Issues 404 through 407. Yeah, so 4 issues worth. Now, the interesting thing is that it's 2 books. The first volume is the restored color version, and the second volume is the original 1987 version as it ran in Batman 404 through 407. That's strange to me. I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is I'm looking forward to this because I am a collector, like somebody who really likes to see the art and the way that things changed over time. But for somebody who just wants to read the story in a nice oversized format, this is prohibitively expensive and not a very convenient or like really interesting format. So it's weird to me that DC is doing this with an Absolute. It's strange that this is an Absolute because this seems more like something that would be put out as a Year 1 gallery edition, which DC does to sort of showcase some of the original art and stuff. As it stands here, this kind of makes me wonder what they're going to be doing with Absolute editions going forward, because traditionally Absolute editions have been just oversized collections of things that have already existed. Celebrated series, Watchmen, V for Vendetta. More recently, there's going to be a Preacher one, Why the Last Man, Transmetropolitan, all that. But they haven't been. It's not like there's been multiple versions or like director's cuts or anything. It's basically just been oversized collections. This makes me wonder if they're going to be moving more towards like collector-y versions of Absolutes, more towards like things highlighting art or more bonus content and stuff like that. So, personally, for me, I will be picking this up, even though I do understand that $125 for under 300 pages of content is quite expensive, in terms of like the value of the book. But it's worth it to me just because I think it's such a cool thing, and I really love Year 1. But I do understand why people were upset about it and why it does throw into question what DC's plan is with Absolutes going forward. Like, is it going to be more of a premium format, or is it going to be more of a collector's item sort of thing, and what line are they going to straddle with that? Up on this page, we have the Batman Noir, The Killing Joke hardcover, which is kind of cool. The Batman Noir, if you're familiar, is a series of their oversized hardcovers that DC's put out. And I know they've had one for Hush, they've had one for Long Halloween, they had one for Dark Knight Returns. I guess now they're going to have one for Killing Joke. There might have been more than that, too. I'm not familiar. But it's basically the most famous Batman stories in these nice sewn binding black and white hardcovers. So if you're somebody who's really into the art on these stories, it basically will show just the black and white artwork, as well as a story from Batman Black and White, written by Brian Bowen, plus covers. So that's much more of a collector's piece, probably for somebody who already owns The Killing Joke in some other format, and then wants to get a black and white version of it. So kind of cool. If you're into Batman Noir, the line, then that's there for you. This was interesting. The Batman by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo box set. This collects the entire run, I believe, in 3 like large size softcover volumes, trade paperbacks. It is not exactly. Oh, sorry. The first 3 volumes collected into this new slipcase, so maybe there's going to be another slipcase. I am waiting to get some kind of omnibus or an Absolute or some very cool oversized collection from this creative team, so I don't know when that's going to happen, but if you haven't picked any of their stuff at all and you want to get trade paperbacks of the run, there it is. And then briefly, I just wanted to flip ahead to the Vertigo section to show that there is a Why the Last Man, Absolute Volume 2, solicited for September, which is exciting. I have the first volume in Absolute, and I am looking forward. I believe so there will be 3 of these. This one collects 21 through 40, and I think there are 60 issues in the series, so the next one will be 41 through 60. So very cool. I love Why the Last Man. I am looking forward to reading it all again when I get it all out in hardcover, but yeah, that has been solicited, and I don't believe there's anything else that is really exciting in here. Scalped Deluxe Edition Book 5. That is exciting. That is the last volume of Scalped from Jason Aaron and R.M. Guerra. Very, very cool. Now that they finally finished that off, maybe they will continue to put out deluxe versions of a lot of their books, and then there's some toys in the back and stuff. So yes, it's been a little bit long and rambly for just a single page of solicits, or you know, a single magazine of solicits, but that is the way, as far as I understand, that DC Rebirth is working. You know, it's going to be different, but different in the way that it's returning to what it once was. So maybe it's going to be different by going backwards. I don't really know. You know, I'd love to answer any questions or comments you guys have in the comments below. If there's creative teams in here that you're looking forward to, I would love to hear that, because like I said, frankly, I just don't know that much about most of the creative teams in this book, but maybe I'm overlooking something, or I just am uninformed about different artists or writers that you are really excited to read or to see. So please let me know if there's anything I'm overlooking, or if DC Rebirth is super exciting to you, or what series you would like to read, or what series you're looking forward to coming out. So as always, if you want to find me on Facebook or Tumblr, I am there. The links are in the description below. There's a Nerd Ventures Facebook page that you can check out. Send me messages. I try to reply to them as often as possible. And a Tumblr you can follow if you like just me posting random comic stuff. It's mostly just like cover art and stuff from like the 60s and 70s, things I find interesting. So yeah, thank you. Please subscribe, leave a comment, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever it is that you're feeling. And I would love to start a little discussion about Rebirth in the comments, and whether you like it or not, or what you are looking forward to or not looking forward to. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bringing some more reviews your way in not too long. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Yeah, that's about it. Whatever day you're watching this, I hope it's a great day. And see you next time. Bye-bye.